VJ Edgecombe praise continues to pile in this offseason as the Sixers get even more proof that they crushed the 2025 NBA draft, this time from ESPN, who recently ran a rookie survey where they polled 20 anonymous NBA execs and scouts, getting their thoughts, their opinions on the 2025 NBA draft class. And they had some good things to say about the Sixers' third overall pick. Before we get into all of that, an update on our sub race here at Chat Sports between us here at 76ers Now and the folks over at the Miami Heat Report, my good friend Nick Roloff. We're trying to see who can get to 25,000 subscribers first. Both channels closing in on that mark, but it's the Heat Report that have about an 800 subscriber lead on us right now, and they're getting dangerously close to that 25K number. So we got some work to do, but I know Sixers fans, we can get it done. So if you want Sixers news, rumors, analysis, coverage every single day, all year round, lock us in. Hit that sub button. I promise you, you will not regret it. So this ESPN rookie survey that ESPN ran with NBA execs and scouts, this is exactly how that went down. ESPN's Jeremy Woo surveyed 20 anonymous NBA executives and scouts asking for their thoughts on the incoming rookie class for the 2025-2026 season based on their evaluations and preliminary observations from this offseason. Summer League, of course. Participants cast their votes on 5 questions. Those 5 questions, 5 categories that the ESPN rookie survey covered are as follows. Rookie of the Year, of course. Everyone wants to know who they think is going to win Rookie of the Year this season. But some interesting categories as well. Best pick, and this is besides Cooper Flagg, because everyone's going to say Flagg is the best pick as the number 1 overall selection. So the best pick in the draft outside of Cooper Flagg, the biggest steal, the biggest reach, and then they also looked ahead to the 2026 NBA draft, who they think the number 1 pick will be in next year's NBA draft. Now, out of these 5 categories, we're going to zone in on one that really had to do with VJ Edgecombe, is where all this praise comes from with the Sixers' 3rd overall pick. And it was this question right here. Which rookie, outside of Cooper Flagg, will prove to be the best pick? Now, a lot of you probably would assume that Dylan Harper, the number 2 overall pick, would end up being the answer there, considering he was pretty widely believed to be the better prospect than VJ Edgecombe, and the execs and the scouts would think that he will end up being the better player and the better pick. But that was not the case. As you can see here with the results from these NBA executives and scouts, VJ Edgecombe actually won the race against Dylan Harper, getting 10 of the 20 votes. Dylan Harper getting 6. A few other players that we'll talk about here in a second getting the remainder of the votes. But VJ Edgecombe, outside of Cooper Flagg, according to these scouts, will be the best pick in this draft at number 3 over someone like Dylan Harper at number 2, who again was pretty widely considered that number 2 overall prospect and number 2 overall pick. That tells you a lot, especially considering VJ only played 2 Summer League games, so he didn't get that much of a chance to show off what he can do. But I think, and we'll get into what NBA or what ESPN had to say about why these execs decided to vote for VJ Edgecombe, but it got to be pretty exciting if you're a 76ers fan, just to kind of see the early buzz that somebody like VJ is already getting, despite the injury he had to deal with, and again, despite only playing 2 Summer League games, already up to a pretty decent start in his NBA career. Can't wait to see him get out there on the floor. I mentioned there was a couple other players that also got votes. Just want to give a quick shout out to those guys. Carter Bryant, Yang Hansen, Trey Johnson, Neat Clifford, Asa Newell, all guys that also got votes for the best pick. Of course, they mentioned that there's no exact criteria, so could factor where these players got picked into that, but still, VJ Edgecombe, the overwhelming favorite there with 10 of the 20 votes. Now, why did these execs decide to pick VJ Edgecombe? Well, here is from ESPN why VJ Edgecombe ended up being that pick for so many of these execs. With Flagg, the overwhelming headliner of the 2025 draft class, We grew this question toward the rest of the group, as I mentioned. Best pick was left open for interpretation intentionally. The goal was simply to find out which selections rival teams liked the most. The big winner here was VJ Edgecombe, who came off the board third to the 76ers and underscored his talent earlier this month with an outstanding 28-point performance in his lone game at Utah Summer League. The Baylor product is turning into a dynamic downhill slasher in the backcourt, and many execs and scouts believe, this is big, he has significant untapped upside operating with the ball in his hands after playing mostly away from it in college. That last part, that these execs and these scouts are now starting to see some untapped potential in VJ Edgecombe to operate with the ball in his hands, is absolutely huge. And we've seen that in the few minutes he has played in Summer League. And this is why some of these college evaluations, when you look at prospects and you try to project what they're going to do at the NBA level, it can be so difficult because sometimes they play certain roles in college and they don't get to fully show off their skill sets. So it's really up to that scouting department to really watch all of their tape, right? Not just pick and choose, really get a full feel for what the player can do. Even go back to high school tape if you have to, and bring them into your building and making sure that you know the kind of player you're getting. There's so much more than just, watching some of these college games. And that's why the Sixers have done a good job of scouting over the past couple of years. They really do a deep dive into these guys. And now they're seeing, and they said at the beginning of Summer League, we want to see VJ with the ball in his hands more, was pretty decent in a lot of those looks. And if he's able to unlock that aspect of his game, he could be very, very good. In fact, you might have seen this quote circulating on Twitter over the past 24 hours or so. There's one Eastern Conference general manager who thinks VJ could be even better than a lot of us expect this season. One Eastern Conference GM on VJ. VJ might be Philly's second best player by the end of this season when you factor in Joel Embiid's uncertain health. He is that good and will thrive playing in Nick Nurse's system. Second best player in his rookie year by the end of it. That is some high praise for VJ Edgecombe, but it's not completely unbelievable. Am I going to project that he'll be this team's second best player? Not factoring in Joel Embiid, of course, by the end of the season. No, I'm not going to project that. Look, you have Embiid, you have Maxey, but even if you don't factor in Embiid, Maxey, of course, is going to be better than VJ Edgecombe, right? But is it crazy to think that VJ could end up making a bigger impact than Paul George if Paul George doesn't have a bounce-back season? It's not the craziest thing to believe. Someone like a Quentin Grimes, a Jared McCain, a Kelly Oubre, it's not the craziest thing to think that if everything does click for VJ, considering what he already has in his bag, with his athleticism, his defensive capabilities, combined with this potential untapped upside he has to play on the ball, I've heard crazier things than possibly he can have a huge breakout year and be very, very good in his rookie season. But I don't want you to expect that and put all this pressure on him. At the end of the day, he is just a rookie. But he does have the tools, as I mentioned, with the athleticism, with the skills he's already been able to show on the defensive end of the ball. That was his calling card coming out of college, right? He's got a great feel for the game, I've noticed, in watching him in college and the summer league as well. Just a high basketball IQ, knows how to play the game the right way. Also, I thought did a great job getting to his spots. Even if he's not always knocking down that mid-range jumper, he's able to get where he wants. He knows where he wants to be and the angles he can get different shots up. Just a smart player with the ball in his hands, as I mentioned. Always playing with an edge, always playing with a tenacity, even in summer league, playing with that chip on his shoulder mentality despite being the third overall pick. Now, that's not to say doesn't have areas to improve because, of course, if you want to reach that upper echelon level, you got to be able to improve in those areas that can really change a player from being a high-end starter to a true all-star, superstar level kind of guy. And it's really these 5 areas for most players, but for VJ Edgecombe as well in particular, where if he can improve in these 5 areas, that can take him from good to really good to great to maybe even elite one day. It starts with the outside shooting. Didn't really show off a great three-point shot in summer league, but the form looks good, and he has shown an ability at times to knock these shots down. So once he adjusts to that NBA three-point line, can he be a 37+% three-point shooter? That would take his game to a whole new level. The self shot creation, as I mentioned, we saw some of that in summer league in flashes, but didn't see it a whole lot at Baylor. Doesn't mean he can't do it. He just wasn't really his role at the time. So can we see that start to emerge? The ball handling does have to get better. It's a little bit shaky. Again, a young player, especially that left hand, it's got to get better there. But I think that's something that you can develop, creating for others. This is something that he doesn't necessarily need to get in his bag, but if he does become a high level playmaker as well, these are just things that you keep stacking these skill sets on top of one another. Then it's like, well, how high really is the ceiling for someone like VJ? The rim finishing has to get better. This is the one thing that I think like really does need to improve outside of the outside shooting. Such a good athlete, he can get to the rim and he can dunk on you, of course, but just not a great finisher at the moment. Needs to get stronger, fighting through contact, being a little more creative, different ways to finish, and just, at the end of the day, just finish at a higher percentage, right? But I think that's something that will improve as well. Already very skilled at getting there, has the athleticism, just a little bit better touch, I think, and he can really excel when he's attacking the rim and use that athleticism that he does have. Say this, man. If VJ can put it all together and he's able to develop those higher end skill sets that we just talked about, watch out, because you're talking about a player who has the IQ, has the athleticism, combining that with the talent and the fundamentals and the skills. I don't want to get too ahead of myself and get too crazy talking about VJ Edgecombe and what he could be, but it gets you really, really excited for the kind of player he can become. I mean, we could be talking about one of the better players in the NBA if everything comes together in a perfect world. At the end of the day, it's up to him how he's able to improve, how he's able to get better. Can those skill sets that take players from, again, good to great to elite come along? Even if they don't, I think he still can be a very, very good NBA player, but that could really unlock that high-end upside and high-end potential that we've been talking about here so far on today's show. So, you heard that NBA Eastern Conference execs say that VJ could be the second best player on the Sixers this season. I want you to chime in, fill in the blank for me. VJ Edgecombe will be the Sixers' blank best player this season. Second, third, fourth. Do you think he'll be the best player on the Sixers this year? That won't happen, but let me know, what are your thoughts? What are you predicting VJ can do in his rookie year? Get involved down in the comment section. Want to hear what you all have to say. And before we get to the rest of this ESPN survey, because I want to run through really quickly the other questions they had and where all the rookies ranked among some of their other topics, I want to continue telling you guys about this tremendous deal on the Sixers half zip jacket hoodie. It is a tremendous, tremendous deal. Was $85 normally, but we're in the summer months right now. It is marked down to just $43. I'm telling you, you want to get it now, because once it starts to get a little colder out and this product becomes an even more higher demand, that price is going to shoot right back up. It's not going to be on this good of a sale anymore. So you want to take advantage while it is hot and while you can save some cash. Again, was $85, now just $43. I think it looks clean as well in that style of the Sixers City Edition jerseys from this past season. Chatsports.com/76erzip. You plug that website in, it'll take you to Fanatics. You can take advantage of that great deal. I'll have that link in the comment section and description of this video as well, so you can just click on it and it'll take you right there. And again, you can get your hands on this half zip while this deal still does apply. So let's go through now real quick some of those other categories that I mentioned off the top that these NBA execs and scouts did vote on. Rookie of the Year, no surprise here. Most of the execs voting for Cooper Flagg, got 17 of the 20 votes. No votes for VJ Edgecombe in this category here. Now, he is dealing with a lot more competition, I guess you could say, in his own team in terms of guys who are going to be putting up a bunch of points, because at the end of the day, whoever scores the most points is probably winning the Rookie of the Year, like Cooper Flagg, with no Kyrie Irving there for at least the first half of the season, at the very least. Doesn't have a lot of competition for shots. He's going to put up a bunch of points and rebounds as well with his size. Probably going to win Rookie of the Year, right? Dylan Harper got 2 votes. Trey Johnson got 1 vote as well. I think Trey Johnson's going to put up some stupid numbers in Washington with how badly they need some of that outside scoring. No votes for VJ here. I'm a little bit shocked he didn't get one vote, but again, I understand with how much talent the Sixers already have, his raw counting stats might not look great. And at the end of the day, that's what the Rookie of the Year voting is for. Whoever has the best raw counting stats, he might make a greater impact on winning than some of these other guys. But unfortunately, that's just not how the Rookie of the Year voting does work. Probably going to end up going to Cooper Flagg. Next up, we got biggest steal of the draft. So this does take more into account where these players got drafted, best value at that selection. 5 votes went to Carter Bryant, forward for the Spurs. They got him pretty late in that first round, at least later than I think people thought he could have gone. And it's just a great fit as well with the Spurs. And with them drafting Dylan Harper, they obviously have Victor Wembanyama. They get Carter Bryant 14th overall in that draft. A 3-and-D wing, athletic, can shoot the ball. Man, he's going to be really, really good for them. So not surprised he went and got the most votes here. The 5 votes out of 20 was first, but a lot of other guys receiving votes as well that aren't even on this list. This is just everybody that got more than one vote, because there was a bunch of guys that got one vote in particular. But Carter Bryant got 5. Yohan Berenger got 4 votes, center for the Minnesota Timberwolves. He looked pretty good in his summer league debut. Blocked I don't want to say 3 or 4 shots in the first couple minutes of the game. People weren't sure if he was going to be the best value pick, where Minnesota took him a little bit earlier than a lot of experts had him going, but athletic, hasn't played a whole lot of basketball, but a lot of potential, a lot of upside as a big man. Looks to be a good pick for them. And then Kaspar Siakatchonis really slid in the draft to Miami. Was very, very surprised on that. Nick Roloff, who also our Miami Heat report here, as I mentioned earlier, huge fan of Siakatchonis. I think he had him as a top 10 guy, maybe even top 8, I want to say. Fell all the way to Miami, had some good summer league games. I think that's a good value pick for them as well. Biggest reach, some interesting names here for biggest reach in the 2025 NBA draft. Yegor Demon for Brooklyn. Brooklyn's draft was really, really interesting. Took a bunch of guards. They had 5 first-round picks. They took Demon 8th overall. Just too early, in my opinion. Definitely some guys on the board there that would have made more sense, especially if they knew they were going to draft a bunch of guards at the back end of the draft anyways. Has his ups and downs in Summer League, but of course, we'll see what these guys do once they reach the NBA level. Yang Hansen, center for the Portland Trail Blazers. A lot of people were very, very surprised about this pick. Thought he was more of a second-round guy. I did as well. But actually looked pretty good in Summer League. And Damian Lillard, who is, of course, back in Portland now, said he's a real player, man. He's legit. So I think the people who voted for him might be regretting that. He might not be the best player in this draft class, but I think he'll be far from the biggest reach. Cedric Coward from Memphis as well. I think they took him 11th overall, right around there. He's an interesting player. He was a late riser. Only played, I want to say, 4 games this year at Washington State. But a player who has a lot of upside as a 3-and-D wing. Shot 40% from 3. Looked really good in the few games he did play. A real win-now guy. I like the pick from Memphis. But definitely, a huge rise for someone who was kind of like a draft nerd darling, if you will. And then finally, we'll get to who the scouts and execs voted on for the number 1 pick in next year's draft. Hopefully, this doesn't matter too much to Philadelphia. If there's a chance, their pick is top 4 protected. If they're that bad again, that they'll get a top 4 pick and they're looking at one of these picks in the NBA draft, that would be an absolute disaster. Darren Peterson, AJ DeBanza, though, getting all the votes. Darren Peterson for more than AJ. It's supposed to be a really, really talented 2026 NBA draft. So, again, hopefully we're not looking towards that for at the back end of the season for Philadelphia. Hopefully we're looking at a deep playoff run and not the NBA draft like we were last year, but just some names to pay attention to there as we reach the end of ESPN's rookie rankings and rookie survey. Want to end off real quick with this on VJ Edgecombe. I'm just so excited to watch him play, man. Aside from the skills that we've talked about, don't need to harp on those too much again from a basketball perspective, but just such a great person, such a great story, such a great culture fit. And I think he's going to have a lot of success here in Philly. Again, even if he's not amazing right away, I don't want to put all these expectations and all this pressure on him from the jump. The Sixers don't really need that either, but I think can be a really, really talented player. Excited for him to be a Philadelphia 76er. Once again, guys, if you are not subscribed already, be sure to hit that sub button. If you've watched all the way until the end here in today's show, hopefully that means you enjoyed. If you did, I encourage you to hit that sub button. Really, really appreciate it. We do content basically every single day, all year round, right here on the show. Again, trying to hit 25,000 subscribers. So hit that sub button, lock us in, and we'll catch you next time right here on the show.